So if you ever get a chance to see that wonderful series that's on TV or on app, The Chosen, there's a beautiful scene about this story. And even just finding that little clip, it helps this come alive, to just see the struggle of Peter. He's tired, he's been fishing, and this carpenter, this guy who isn't even a professional fisherman, is coming to him saying, "Excuse me, here's some more advice for you." Imagine an NBA player, and he's struggling or something, or he's just not making the shots. And then, imagine if I come up to that NBA player. I'll probably have to look like this. But I have a -2 for my whole middle school record. Do you see how that works? I missed every basket in middle school, and I shot on my own basket and actually scored for the other team. That's my basketball career. It's pretty bad. But imagine if I go to this NBA player and say, "Excuse me, here's some advice for you. This is how you're supposed to shoot the basket." What do you think he'd think? Do you think he'd be kind of annoyed, frustrated? Who are you? So imagine Peter. He's a professional fisherman. This is what he does for his whole life. And someone who's not a professional fisherman just calls out, "Hey, go out one more time. I'm going to show you where to put your nets." And so there's this resistance. There's this temptation to say, no. But there's something about Jesus looking at Peter that does something in Peter's heart. There's a trust that there's more than meets the eye with this man named Jesus. So he says, "At your command, we'll go out one more time." And they go, they lower those nets. It's a huge, huge amount of fish. So much that one of those big, giant boats is in danger of capsizing. Have you ever been on a big charter boat before? Not a little rowboat. These are big. That's a lot of fish in order to put there. You have to put a humpback whale or something on there in order for it to tip. And then there's other boats that come in, James and John, and they're starting to tip too. This huge, just totally surprising fruit that happens here. Simon Peter, he falls on his knees and he says, "Lord." He recognizes that this is someone who's not merely just a carpenter, but there's something more about him. But he recognizes his own weakness. He looks at his own heart and says, "I'm not worthy to follow this guy." And Jesus says, "Don't be afraid. I'm going to send you for another mission. This fishing was getting you ready for something greater. Now I'm going to send you forth, and you're going to help bring people to me." And think about the Holy Father, how of all the different spiritual leaders who are out there in the world, he's able to bring nations together, help nations work together towards peace. And this is where his ministry started. But then it says they brought their boats to shore. They left everything and followed him. Notice how it says they followed him. And they left everything else behind. What are the things that we maybe hold on to that are slowing us down from saying yes to Jesus? Do you remember the story about the rich young man who he runs up to Jesus, he kneels and says, "What must I do to have eternal life?" And he's like, "Well, okay, have you kept the commandments?" He's like, "Yes, I followed all this. What more do I need to do?" And Jesus looks at him with love and says, "You're holding on to a lot of stuff, and it's getting in the way of you following me. So let go of that, sell it, give it to the poor, and follow me." And the man couldn't do it. He was holding on to stuff. He wasn't willing to let it go. And it's kind of like that experience of sometimes we hold on to something, seeing it as like our security blanket. It's something that gives us joy, gives us peace. And yet, what if God has something even more for us? I shared this story once before where maybe when you're little, I know we have a little one right over there, but just imagine when you're a little tiny tyke, you're holding on to a fly swatter that has been used many, many times, and there are the fruits of that use still on the fly swatter. And imagine as a little 2-year-old, you think that is the most delicious, coolest thing ever. Sorry if you've already eaten breakfast, but, and you're just kind of licking it, and your parent comes over and says, dude, or little dude, give me that fly swatter, that's yucky. What is a little guy going to do? They're going to hold on to it, right? And if you take it away, what's going to happen? Ah! Right? Hasn't that happened? So, what if that parent comes over and pulls out popsicle? And then you have the fly swatter, you have the popsicle, and you say, what do you really want? What is that little one going to do? I'm going to take the popsicle. But notice how it was hiding behind here. And the little guy was saying, I have this fly swatter, and this is what makes me happy. And yet, if they didn't let go of the fly swatter, they couldn't have had something even better. So think about, what are you holding on to? What's your fly swatter that you think is the coolest thing? But maybe God is saying, those boats, those nets, yeah, that might have been good at a certain time, but there's something more that I have for you. And will you have the courage to trust Jesus, to look him in the eye as he looks at you and says, trust me. Even though it seems like you might know exactly what to do, you might be a professional at this, you might look at me and say, yeah, I'm just a carpenter, I'm not a fisherman, but look into my eyes and see that I have more for you. But you're not going to see it unless you say yes first. That's the mystery of following God. We don't see everything on the other side, but we have to have the courage to take that step out there. You see this in a lot of different stories. One of my favorite, Moana. I'm a big Moana fan. I love to sing it when no one's watching. I just start singing in the car. So if you're ever driving by me and you just see me singing, I'm probably singing Moana or Aladdin. But that whole thing about she has to make that courageous jump to go how far I'll go, that sense of going beyond those breakers. There's something more. She can't see it, but there's something calling to her. And if she doesn't take the step to try, she'll never know what's on the other side. So there's something that God has for you. And right now we're holding on to the fly swatter. It's scary to let go of that because maybe we'll start crying. But know that the Lord has something even greater for you, something better than a popsicle. So follow him. Let go of the other stuff.